We will just wait for people to join, but we should be live now. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight's puppy parenting class from Burns and Admiral with Lioness Beth England, who is sharing her stories as a dog owner and thinking back to when her dogs were puppies and what she wished she knew before she got a puppy, to hopefully help those of you that are getting one or have just got one to learn from a fellow dog owner. So thank you for joining us today. My dogs have decided to start playing, so sorry if you can hear that in the background, so I might mute myself in between. If anyone has any questions, please do just pop them in the comments and we'll ask them as and when we can, or save them till the end. So first up, I think it would be great to talk about Buddy's obviously your eldest dog. Just thinking back to when you first brought him home, what did you prepare before you got him, and what did you do to sort of settle him in?
Yeah, so I've had Buddy. He's about 4.5 years old now, just over 4, sorry. And I've grown up with dogs most of my life, so I've kind of got used to knowing what it's like having a dog in and around. But it's my parents that have had the dog, so they've had to deal with most of the stuff. And Buddy was my first dog to be officially mine. And as always, you panic buy everything. You end up spending an absolute fortune on getting a million toys in. We've got this comfiest dog bed, so you name it, I probably bought it. Puppy-proof the flat as much as I thought possible, all the way down to the puppy training pads, mats everywhere. You name it, I'd got it. And I think it was safe to say that he was a really good puppy to bring in and be used to being in and around away from his mum. But one of the biggest things that I got, which helped me massively, which has helped also for our second dog, was getting a crate. And we were very strong in the sense that we knew we were going to crate train him, because I wanted to make sure that, obviously not being around dogs before, I know dogs can chew things and don't want everything destroying, but also to protect them and to give them a little place that they know that is their safe space, or a timeout if needed. But also very key that we didn't want to ever use the crate as a punishment for him. We wanted to make sure that he trusted being there, that it was a safe space for him. So as always, on a night time, he would go in his crate, be nice and tucked away. And he was very good at alerting us on an evening, or through the night, should I say, when he needed the toilet. He would always tap on his crate door, which would alert me to let him go out for a wee. I think we were really lucky in that sense that he didn't just randomly pee everywhere, which he did at the start, which hence needing the puppy pads. But once he got into a bit of a routine and he'd been with us, he got into the habit of doing that and alerting us. So I feel like the crate was the biggest lesson we got to help him being used to being in that space. And also when I left the house, he knew that that was his time and place to rest and not just run around like crazy and probably destroy a million other things. So for us, I would say that is the best thing we got to start bringing him home. But as I say, we also filled the house with lots of toys for him. And one thing we did actually use, which I found out from a friend, was we got it was like a teddy bear that was like a hot water bottle, but you could heat it up in the microwave. And they say if you put that in the beds with them, it makes them feel like they're still with their brothers and sisters or with their mum, that warm, like snuggling up effect, which I think helped calm him down a lot, so that through the night he wasn't crying for his mum or his brothers and sisters, that he seemed quite calm and content, which helped me get more sleep through the night. So that was a really good start.
That's some good tips. We've had a question already that I think might be good to answer now. Alison would like to know, how did you decide what breed of dog to get, and do you have any tips to pick the right dog for your lifestyle?
Yeah, so funnily enough, I always had my heart set on a Labrador. I've had my first dog was what we call a mongrel, where he was just a mixed breed of everything. He had lab, terrier, staffy, he had all kinds of mixtures inside him. And then my second family dog was a black lab crossed with spaniel. So I'd kind of been in around the lab type dogs, and for all my life I thought I was going to get my own lab. And then playing football, I met someone on my team called Maria. Oh, she had a working golden retriever. He's Norwegian, but as soon as I saw this dog and his coat and the way, I was like, that is the dog that I want. And she helped me go on to and join a golden retriever Facebook page, which I found very useful, because before I knew that was the type of dog I wanted. I knew I'm a very energetic person. I live quite a energetic lifestyle, so I knew having a very energetic dog would suit me, because I don't really want to just plod around. I like walking at a fast pace or going out and run. So for me, it helped me knowing that I'd have a dog that would want to engage in a lot of exercise and activity. But the Facebook page was really helpful, because I was able to put on the group, this is the type of dog that I'm looking for. Is anyone got any litters coming up? Or am I able to, is there anyone that can give me more information, etc., on this breed of dog? And in the comments, got loads of different people that had commented saying, I breed golden retrievers, etc. And this one particular breeder stood out to me a bit more. She gave me much more in-depth detail. She private messaged me on Facebook, which gave me a bit more comfort, rather than being, oh, just buy my dog. She basically said, I have a litter coming up in, I think I ended up waiting around 8 or 9 months to get him. So it wasn't just I wanted a dog and I went and got one. She let me come and meet her, actually, and the mother of Buddy, before she was pregnant. So I got to meet the temperament of the dog, what setup it was like. So it wasn't what you call a puppy farm. You knew it was all legit, KC registered, the whole shebang, because I wanted to make sure I did it properly. And then she let me know when she was expecting to breed, to get pregnant. I felt like a proud mum when I got the update that, oh, the dog's pregnant, I'm finally going to have a baby, type thing. And yeah, so obviously it was probably like between an 8 and 10 month period of me waiting to get Buddy, but I knew it was right because I'd followed these steps that I believed was correct, in knowing that he's going to be bred correctly. There's going to be no harm either side, or I wasn't just giving my money to someone that I didn't trust. And lo and behold, when obviously Buddy was born, I was able to go and pick which dog I wanted out of the litter. So I was one of the first on that litter, and funnily enough, his kennel club's name is First Dibs, because I got first pick.
Oh, lovely.
Which was really sweet that she let me do that. And so we was 2 weeks old. I got to choose which one was the one for me, and yeah, literally that was it. And when it got to the time in which I could bring him home, he ended up staying 2 weeks longer, actually, with the breeder, because it was the first time I'd been called up to England squad. My first senior England call up happened as soon as my dog was about to come home. So I had to wait an extra 2 weeks, which felt like the longest 2 weeks in the world when you're waiting for your dog to come home. But I would say that helped me massively in joining a group where there was it's not just normal dog walkers on there. Like I say, there's breeders, there's other dog experts usually on these Facebook groups where you can get good advice. And for me, that helped me massively. So I would say Maria is the reason I got the dog that I wanted, because when I saw Teo, I fell in love with him straight away. And Buddy is very, very, very close second to what Teo looks like. I couldn't have got a more similar dog. But also in terms of, I knew he would fit my lifestyle because he's energetic like myself.
Yeah. And I guess he was worth the wait and getting to pick, because I think you've said that he's almost like he was the dream puppy.
Yeah. He was. I was really lucky that he was almost like a catfish of dogs, because he was so easy in certain areas, that when we got our second, we were like, okay, this is what a puppy's really like.
And obviously you loved him so much you went and got a second golden retriever. How did you introduce them and sort of make sure that they got on when you brought Dillis home?
Yeah, so obviously we'd had Buddy just over 2 years, and it got to a point where I was thinking about breeding him, because I loved him that much. I was like, I'd love another dog, but to be one of his babies. Lo and behold, as I'd had that conversation with my partner, they'd already surprised me in getting put on the litter for another dog. So Dillis, our second dog, is actually Buddy's niece. So Buddy's had 2 sisters that stayed with the breeder who had a litter, which is Dillis's mum. And yeah, the first most important thing that we knew we had to do when we brought them home was do it in a fairly decent sized space. We did ours in the house, which was an open hallway, just to make sure that it wasn't more like a threat of another dog coming into his territory. He's always been very calm. and relaxed around other dogs, never had any issues. But also, you never know with dogs what can happen. So it was important that we did it in a decent sized space to introduce them. And on top of that, there was 3 of us there at the time. So myself, my partner, and a friend, to make sure that if anything was to happen, we were all there to like alleviate anything that could go wrong as quick as possible, or if anything was to go wrong, we could react quickly. But knowing Buddy as he did, we let her down, and he had a little bit of a sniff and walked away. He wasn't really too fussed about having much of a play. It was more Dillis. She was straight in, barking away, like wanted to play with him, started biting him from the off, and we knew from that day she was going to be the boss.
Yeah.
She terrorized him from the day she got home, and I feel like I can remember him looking at me thinking, Mum, what have you done? I had a lovely, lush lifestyle, single dog, just doing whatever he wanted around the house. But yeah, the biggest thing I would say was that we did it in an open space. We had people there to make sure that if anything was to go wrong, we were able to intervene quickly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, one of the things that we did within the first 1 or 2 weeks of bringing her home was make sure that they got used to sharing toys, because we didn't want one to become obsessive or possessive over their belongings. It's now not just your environment, it's their environment. So we found it was quite helpful to make sure that we would, even just simple of getting Buddy's teddy out of his mouth, placing it in his sister's mouth, and then it's just basic little training things like that would help them know that it's okay to share and that it's not just theirs.
That's great. And then in terms of sort of socializing them with other people and noises and other dogs, sort of what was your process with that?
Again, so luckily for me, I can't speak highly enough of my breeder, I must say, but when I brought Buddy and Dillis home, they gave us a checklist of different noises and areas that they'd been. So there was like obviously a Hoover, going in the boot of a car, whether it's on their vet trip for vaccinations and things like that. So they've given us a tick list of what they did and didn't react to. Luckily, neither dog reacted to many things, but I know a lot of dogs can be scared of a Hoover and want to attack the Hoover when you're trying to clean up around the house. So for us, we already had a baseline of knowing what it was that they were or wasn't scared of. And like I said, for me, I lived in a flat when I first brought Buddy home right by a main road. So I would learn him on the lead, to walk by the road, but on the safe side. Make sure he'd obviously your usual sit and wait at traffic lights. Not that dogs know what traffic lights are, but the principle of waiting for a gap to go so that, God forbid, if they ever did get out, they would try and avoid going into a road setting. But luckily for me as well, I had a lot of other friends that had dogs. As I mentioned, Maria with Teo and my other friends had dogs. So we were able to socialise Buddy quickly in and around other dogs, to get used to playing with other dogs. And quickly we learned that he was quite a playful dog. He wasn't one of those antisocial ones, but even if he was, we'd allow him to have his own space. I would never put him in a situation where he felt uncomfortable. And then I would say one of the biggest things that have helped us in his socialization from an early age was using what we call, well, I'm in London, we call it a dog buddy. To make sure that when, obviously I go away on football trips sometimes, so I can't always be with him at every point of the day. And this was before I'd moved in with my partner, so it was me and him predominantly. He would go and spend the afternoon at Dog Buddy, where he would get collected, taken in a van and go and play with other dogs for the day, and then he'd get returned home. And it got him used to not only traveling in a car with other dogs and lots of noises, it would also mean he would have to play with other dogs that he wouldn't necessarily know all the time, because every day he went, there would be different dogs there. It wasn't necessarily always the same dogs. However, the first few times I did send him, he went to Dog Buddy with a dog that is my friend and their dog, so that he did actually go with someone he knows. It's almost like sending your kids to school with a sibling. Like you can hold your hand as they go. But yeah, I think that was really important, that he felt safe with another dog. And then it got to where he was old enough that he could go by himself and know that it's okay to leave his mum and not cry and be distressed, and still know that he's coming home to me. So I think that was a really important thing that we've instilled in him from a young age that it's okay that I'm not there, but there's other people around you that you can trust and feel safe with.
Yeah, that's good. So important to ensure that you can still have a social life or with work and not feel bad that your dog's at home and anxious that you're not there. What about anything unexpected, like any hazards that you didn't expect would be a hazard for Buddy in your house?
Yeah, so the biggest hazard we found out in my house was socks. He had a thing for getting in our wash basket and taking the socks out, and we've had instances where we've realised there's socks missing, but thought he'd just maybe destroyed it. It turns out he'd actually swallowed it, and as funny as it sounds, and it's come out whole the other end as well when cleaning up his business. That was a bit of a worry for us because you wouldn't think that just a random sock could cause damage, but we're lucky that and very fortunate that it didn't get tangled up any of the string off the sock and get caught in his intestines or even choke on it. It's not exactly a wet material, it's quite thick cotton sock. So that was probably the biggest hazard we had in terms of the house. So we had to make sure that firstly our wash baskets were tall enough and a lid shut to get away, but also out of the way of him, because the last thing we'd want is, say, if God forbid, even if we'd fallen asleep or something and having a nap, he's gone in the bedroom and got the wash basket and started choking on a sock. So for us, it's kind of, we're always on alert now of, even now, this was when he was younger, even still, we do our best to keep things such as like clothing items and especially socks and underwear out the way, because they seem to have a thing for that. Which I wouldn't have expected to be the biggest worry for us. But you never know what can be a hazard, and clearly my dog had a thing for socks.
Yeah. What about anything that they're scared of, that that you maybe had to get them used to? Or
yeah, so one instance that I found really difficult when we'd got Dillis was I was first doing off-lead training with her. It was her first time, and stupidly, from myself, I've always walked in woodlands in the area in which we live, and Buddy knows the woods well, I know the woods well, but this was Dillis's first time. And so I'd taken her there, and Buddy's fine, he's trotting along as he does, and I'm trying to teach Dillis recall, and it was quite a narrow path in which I was on the woods, and without knowing or having time to look up, a horse had come by very quickly and startled both, obviously, Dillis and myself. Buddy had seen horses before. He's never batted an eyelid at them, was never bothered by them, would just continue about his daily life. However, this particular day, Dillis obviously had never seen a horse before. It was just a huge, big animal running towards her, scared her, and she set off running towards the horse. There's no fear in this girl for God knows reason, but she just set off running to this horse, barking. And as you know, if anyone has been in and around horses, obviously they kick up quite high with their legs. There was a rider on the back, and it was very distressing, probably especially for myself, for the dogs and the horse and the rider. And the last thing I would have wanted was to have caused an accident, because my dog wasn't under control. So that was a very difficult time where Dillis is barking at this horse, and because she's barking at the horse, Buddy, being triple her size and a much deeper bark, has wanted to protect her. So he's then gone, even though he's never bothered at a horse in his life, he's now protecting his little sister, and he started barking at the horse. So there was a lot of obviously panic and screaming, shouting going on at the time. Thankfully, I'd managed to get hold of both Buddy and Dillis. His recall was thankfully really good at this point, so he did eventually come back, and I'd managed to grab her. And I just remember trembling, like shaking at the thought of this horse that's kicked up, nearly stamped on her, and could have obviously severely hurt her or even worse, killed her. But not only that, I had fear that there was a lady on the back of the horse, the rider, she could have got flung off and got hurt. We've all read about it before in the news that these accidents happen, and I'd have felt horrific if I would have been the cause of that. But that's just basically from me not checking my surroundings quick enough, or not even necessarily quick enough, but probably doing it in a more bigger open space where there's not a narrow path. So even to this day now, I always make sure that I'm on alert where I am. They are much since then. She's gotten much better with horses. I'll always make them sit and wait and watch the horse go past. And yeah, that's to this day, like I say, it still makes me nervous when I see horses because of that. And I know the damage which it can do to probably both my dog or them and the rider. So I would say when you're doing your training or whatever, I'd say I should have taken her on a lead and been around horses more, knowing that horses ride through the woodlands. And I would say the biggest lesson I learned in that is that not all dogs are the same. Not every dog has the same personality. Just because Buddy doesn't react to horses doesn't mean that Dillis wouldn't have. And I unfortunately learned that the hard way.
Yeah, at least nothing happened. But as you say, it's one of those things you kind of don't realize until you're in that situation, aren't you? So thank you for sharing that story. And then you mentioned to me just before we started this, I'd love you to go into detail about umbrellas as well, you said.
Yeah, so really randomly, well, I say randomly, we were out on a walk, and it was hammering down with rain. Usually I don't take an umbrella, just whack a coat on, hood up, just get on with it. There's obviously a lot of people out with their dogs with umbrellas, and at first we didn't understand why Buddy just suddenly went into panic mode, was barking frantically at these people. And the more people we went past, it kept occurring, and we realized that it was the umbrella that was frightening him, because he couldn't make out what was above their head, especially if there was like a shadow coming off the umbrella or what. It would seem to freak him out. So as much as it is bad luck, as the fairy tales say, we did have to start walking around the house with umbrellas and leaving them in and around the house. So we would like walk up to them, sniff them, know that they're not a threat, or us walking with them in the garden and stuff, just so it got him used to being around them. Because as I say, I'd not really used them much. I just kind of got on with it when I go out in the rain. I'm used to being outdoors, but it was something that we were worried, because the bark was so frantic, you wouldn't then want it to turn aggressive because he's so scared. Thankfully he never did, and now he's absolutely fine. But things above people's heads we still have to be conscious of, although we know he's fine. Things such as it don't just relate to umbrellas. It actually, when people have little kids on their shoulders, we've realized that that's also a bit of a frightening thing for him, because he can't understand what is above someone's head. So that's, again, another lesson that we learn. I've thankfully got two nieces, so I'm able to have Buddy and Dillis around kids and play with them and throw them about a bit. So again, they're more aware, but not everyone has younger, I'd say, family members or friends that they can do that with. So it's probably where you can to socialise best, or get them used to knowing that things that go above people's heads aren't a danger.
One of mine, it was prams or bicycles, so it always seemed like she was barking at kids.
Yeah,
but it was the fact that they were moving without legs.
walking. Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
always having to apologize to people, but try and teach her and reassure her that they weren't scary machines.
It is. So like I said, for one dog, so luckily for me, Buddy and Dillis, they've never once cared about chasing a bicycle. But I have known a lot of friends that have dogs that want to chase and will keep chasing the cyclist. But again, every dog's got its own individual personality and traits. So it's just, I guess, trying to explore as many options as you can to figure out which is the one that sets your dog off and which part is your dog's fine with.
Yeah, and if you've learned, you can have the same breed and it doesn't matter. But
Yeah,
they're completely
100%.
different. Yeah.
Mine are too, and I know one's a female, and she's definitely the boss. But yeah, he's just very laid back. But we've noticed that they are two completely different dogs, and just because you treat one a certain way doesn't mean the other one reciprocates being treated the same way. So we learned the hard way, unfortunately. So hopefully people can learn from my mistakes, and this is hopefully teaching people to check things that they would never have expected.
Hopefully. So we've got some more questions here. Maria would like to know, if you had the chance to have another breed, what would it be and why?
Oh, I've always liked the idea of owning a German Shepherd. Again, probably quite energetic dog. I like the fact that they are used, especially as police dogs. I've always felt like I've had a bit of an affiliation with that, wanting to help, and obviously they do great for our communities. I just think that they're all dogs to me are loyal. I'm the biggest dog lover you'll probably ever meet. I could have any breed in the world and love it. But there's a few people I know that have got German Shepherds, and I've always loved their behaviour, how loyal they are, how much training it can be, but how also obedient they can be as well. I think they're very, very beautiful dogs.
Oh, good. And then Mark would like to know about bringing Dilys home. Did it take time for Buddy to get used to her? I know you said that she just wanted to like rule the roost, but was it love at first sight for him, or did it take him a while to sort of accept her as his sister?
I think, if I'm being honest, he just kind of accepted that she was there. It was almost like he had no choice but to love her because she forced him to love her. As weird as that sounds, he's a laid back dog. He's just so calm around things, that because she was so excitable, she kind of just loved him. So he would lay down on the floor, or if he would get up and walk around, she would just follow him everywhere. And if he'd lay down, she'd just lay down and literally rest their head on him. And I think he quickly learned to realize that, yes, she can be a bit, I guess, bossy and whatever, and he would allow it to an extent. If it got too much, he would always tell her off. He would definitely put her in a place, and then in 5 seconds she'd probably forget again. But I would say it wasn't love at first sight, but very quickly he learned he was her protector almost, and that he just accepted that she would lay and cuddle with him. And we've literally had no issues with them. But I think that does come from him being around other dogs as well, that he's just so calm and he just accepted her in his environment.
Lewis wants to know, when are you getting a third?
Lewis, I will not be getting a third dog, as I don't have the time, the money. I think a third would be too much stress on my life. As I say, I do tend to travel a lot, and I'm very lucky that I have the support network that I do with my partner, with Dog Buddy, and with family members, that if we do need to go away or anything, that they're around people that are able to look after them. It's just funny, all this puppy talks makes me want another one, but I just know for a fact that it would be too much chaos, and I'd want to be able to give them the right amount of attention. I can, and at the minute Dilly seems to be taking up a lot of it.
If she was another Buddy, then maybe.
You know what, I probably could, yeah, but again, the chances of me getting another Buddy are probably 1 in a trillion. So it's I love them both for who they are, but a third right now is just, no, I think my partner would kill me.
Another question here from Maria. Do you have any tips for when you walk your dog off leash so they don't run away? Sometimes her Labrador runs far away without her.
Yeah, so we actually it's 2 different ways for this, because so with Buddy, he was never, although he's a golden retriever, he's not very good at retrieving balls, which we thought he would be. Instead, unfortunately to say it, he's a working retriever and he likes to hunt. So we found out very quickly as a puppy he liked chasing squirrels and rabbits and deers and all sorts of things. And there was a few instances where he'd gotten out of eyesight. As much as I would train his recall and obviously use the whistle, in the end I just reverted to using my own whistle because I'd always forget the whistle. My memory can be quite bad. We ended up getting a tracker on his collar, so that we downloads to an app to our phone, and I think it's called Tractive, and we have them on both of our dogs' collars now. And basically, God forbid, if they did ever get too far, we're able to follow their movements. And what I like about the app is it tells you how many yards, and it gives you a full GPS map unit of where they are. So you're always able to track them at all times. It's not ideal, obviously, if your dog's constantly running away. But what we did with that, we would, again, try and use the recall whistle when they would come, reward them with a treat. However, Dilys was slightly different. She does like to hunt like Buddy, but she's very much needs a job to do and is very ball orientated. So with her, normal tennis balls didn't seem to work. So we literally have the Kong squeaky balls. And the minute you squeak that ball, her attention is on you like a flash. And I think, I don't know if it's the sound that she likes more or the fact that it means she's playing with the ball. But what we learned was when she used to bowl and we'd squeak the ball, all she would hear would be the squeak, and she would just do a 180 and come back. Again, I can only speak for what my dogs do.
Yeah.
Now they're much older. Buddy doesn't have that tendency to run off as much, but we still keep the trackers on them as much as possible. And we still continue to practice recall, even if we're just in a random field and throwing balls, or I'd stand at one end of the field, my partner would stand at the other end, I would whistle and they would run all the way over to me, sit, wait, do the treat. So I think what might be good if they have a continuous habit of sprinting off and away from you, whether it's for another animal or something, would maybe, if you have the option of having someone there with you, so it deflects their attention to more than the one thing that they can see, if that makes sense. Whether that be a squeaky ball, another person there to practice going from one safe space to another point. That was how we managed to get ours to, and I'm not saying ours is perfect. There is times where naturally dogs being dogs, if they're on a mission, sometimes they do just go, but we have the safety of knowing that we have the tracker on them so that we can monitor how far away they've actually gotten from us.
Yeah, and that's important when you're picking a breed, isn't it, to look into if they're that sort of dog. I mean, I've got poodles who have like an invisible lead on them. They just can't be too far away from me. So I've never had to worry about that, because they're always either at my heel or they'll get like 2 feet away and then they have to turn back. So
it's funny because when I see people with dogs like that, I think that must be a dream of a walk. Whereas mine, again, as I've said, I walk in the woodlands a lot. I can always hear mine, not always necessarily see them, but I trust them.
Yeah.
But I know they're always running around for the squirrels. But I will always, like, if I feel like they've gone too far, will always whistle and recall them back. But they never, unless they're absolutely shattered, they will never walk at my heel at the start. But by the end, before we get coming towards the car park, I always make sure they heel at my roadside, at my feet. But as a puppy, as I said, at the flat that I used to have with Buddy, I actually did used to walk him around in front of the road to the field off leash. And that was just because I taught him heel. I would do heel around the house, around the front bit of the garden, and then I'd do it outside. It was probably a bit brave because it was by a main road, but I would always teach him heel. And even now I can just click a finger, heel, and he will walk by my side. Dillis, not as much. So I tend to not do it in sense that if she sets off, she'll probably set him off as well.
Yeah. Great. And Maria says, thank you. She will try that with her sister and her dog. And she's in Spain.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Maria.
Well, thank you, everyone, for your questions. And Bethany, thank you so much for your time and sharing your stories. I hope everyone found that useful. We've got another couple of classes coming up on Wednesday and Thursday. So please do check them out on the Admiral and Burns Facebook pages and on their websites for more information. So thanks again, Bethany, for your time.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.